When we started Lighthouse a couple of decades ago, we didn't have big dreams. I've heard other church planners, they have these big hopes, like save the world. Our big hopes, let's try not to shut down. Let's try to survive for more than a couple of months. And our big ministry plan was to be faithful in the simple things. We try to minister the word humbly and walk with people lovingly. It really wasn't fancy or complicated. Flash forward to today, and we're nothing like what we imagined. We've gone from an initial group of 25 to well over 1,000 people on campus on a Sunday. But more than size, the greatest blessing is that front row seat to grace to see what God has done over the past couple of decades. To see people get saved and baptized, to hear of incredible stories of transformation, to witness people find hope in their suffering, to walk with people as they raise their families here. That is more than we deserve. But while there are many blessings to growth, it's also caused some challenges. We are maxing out our sanctuary and overflow. The children's ministry reaches capacity in some classes. We don't have enough space for adult education classes or offices or counseling rooms or bridge ministry or ministry to those families affected by disability. It's definitely an example of good problems, but they are problems nonetheless. With that in mind, we're beginning a generosity initiative to pursue a bigger campus that we're calling Treasuring Christ. Our hope is to raise $7 million over the next 2 years. This is over and above our current budget. And the prayer is that the money will allow us to either build out another site we lease or to be used as a down payment on a building we buy. Now, it's obviously a huge endeavor, one that we don't take lightly. And I'm hoping you realize that this is not simply about getting bigger. Rather, we're taking these steps primarily because we think it will help us to fulfill our mission, which is to make gospel-centered disciples who exalt and proclaim Christ. That's what we're about as a church. In particular, we believe a bigger site will help us to accomplish this in a couple of ways, as we look out and as we look in. So first, as we look out. Simply, we're hoping a bigger site allows us to make more gospel-centered disciples as we expand the reach of the gospel both locally and globally. I shared some of our challenges earlier, but again, we're reaching the point where we are limiting the amount of people we can serve and minister to. And we shouldn't be okay with that. It should weigh heavy on our hearts that a major stumbling block to church attendance is our facilities. Remember, our goal can't simply be to make a church that we enjoy attending. Rather, we should be committed to growth, not for numerical sake, but so that we can walk with sinners and sufferers and encourage them to be gospel-centered disciples. Understand too, if our building limits our growth, it limits our resources, which in turn potentially limits the gospel impact we can have. Understand, though size has its challenges, one benefit is that with growth in numbers has come growth in resources, which then affords us the opportunity to support ministries locally and globally. Whether it's church planting, including Japan and Unreached People Group, giving away millions to missions, outside ministries and missionaries, or holding conferences that have blessed and built up other churches, by God's grace, we have been able to really look out because of our size and resources. And I hope this excites you for the next season of ministry as a church. Just dream for a moment about what we could do by the grace of God. What ministries are you passionate about? Can we send out more missionaries and church planters? Can we raise up more pastors and leaders? Can we start a counseling center? Can we start a more formalized educational arm to our ministry? Again, what might God do? All this to say, we believe a bigger facility will help us to be faithful to our mission as we look out. But second, it allows us to be faithful to our mission as we look in. Paul says this in Philippians 4:17, "Not that I seek the gift, but I seek the fruit that increases to your credit." The Philippians had supported Paul financially, but what he says really matters is the blessing it is to them. And this really does depict the heart of the elders. You've heard us say this before, but this is not about what we want from you, but what we want for you. This is a big project. It's a lot of money. But what gets us excited is what this will mean for our church family. And this is because we really believe this generosity initiative will encourage our own church family to be more faithful, gospel-centered disciples as we learn to treasure Christ above all things. Again, that's our theme, treasuring Christ. Understand that treasuring Christ is why we exist as Christians. To love and worship Jesus above all things is the duty and the delight of every believer. But what will always hinder that is our temptation to treasure other things. And this can be many things, but the Bible tells us that one of the most dangerous is money. As 1 Timothy 6 says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And I'm sure you've seen it. We have faithful members of our church who really struggle in this area. And yet that idolatry poses a serious threat to their lives and the lives of their families. I mean, what is most frightening is that most people don't really believe that the love of money is a real problem. None of us are concerned with having too much money. All this to say, it's crucial that we seek to grow in how we treasure Christ. It's not enough to encourage people to go to church and study their Bibles and be involved in serving. We have to warn against the danger of false saviors and then tell them why Christ is so much better. Maybe most simply, we want people to remember that money isn't our great treasure, Christ is. Because when Christ is our great treasure, then we can experience freedom and peace and happiness, all the things that are lost when we try to treasure money. In other words, in treasuring Christ, generosity becomes joy, which means that giving is actually gain. And so Lighthouse, I hope you're excited about this journey we are beginning, because we really believe the biggest thing God is going to do is not the work on a building, but the work in each of our hearts. May Christ be glorified as we treasure him above all things.